Blessings, beloveds. Welcome back to my channel. Anastasia, Cosmic Astrologer, here today sharing some reflections on the eclipse that's coming up on January. I think the date is the 6th, but I'll double check that in a moment and we'll have a look at the chart together. Before I start unpacking what I feel I understand about this eclipse, just a couple of things to help us frame our thinking around the general essence and meaning to eclipses. Now, today's focus is on the solar eclipse. So, first of all, solar and lunar eclipses are very different to one another. Solar eclipse is a new moon and a lunar eclipse is a full moon. That's the first point to remember. So given the solar eclipse is a new moon symbolized by darkness, which further essentially symbolizes the unconscious, the shadow components within us. So solar eclipses generally, what they do is they tap into the components that are hidden, within ourselves. The unconscious, the shadow components that we are not readily easily able to look at and to explore. On a spiritual level, solar eclipses and lunar eclipses for that matter can be incredibly powerful. So if one is on the path, on a spiritual path, these eclipses really do present opportunities to transform, to evolve, to heal, to clear out karma. A number of different powerful experiences and processes can be felt. We can undertake when we apply some consciousness to the energies that these eclipses bring up. The eclipses are linked to the nodal axis, so the nodes that we see in the chart that we work with in our birth chart, the south node and the north node. And because they connect to the nodes, all eclipses connect to the nodes. If there are no nodes involved, there is no eclipse, period. And the fact that the eclipses are connected to the nodes is really suggesting the possibility of stimulating personal integration that relates to our past and to our future, because the south node carries with it the past and the north node carries inherent within it the future that we are all individually and collectively as well walking into or evolving into. Now, if you are born anywhere from the 31st of December to around about mid-January, then this eclipse is going to directly affect you, because it will actually be what we call conjunct your sun. So if you were born from the 31st of December, you will be a Capricorn, right? Now this eclipse, this solar eclipse, is in the sign of Capricorn at actually 15 degrees. So those of you born between the dates that I just mentioned will be eclipsed, so to speak, in terms of the sun in your birth chart will be affected by this eclipse. Now, if you have your moon at 15 degrees of Capricorn or Cancer, then this eclipse will affect you as well. If you have Venus or Mars at around about 15 degrees of Capricorn, then this eclipse will be affecting your Mars or Venus in your birth chart. It actually happens to be conjunct my Mars personally. So in terms of aspects, when we're looking at this solar eclipse, we're really only working with the conjunction and the opposition. So what you are looking for is your sun, moon, Mercury, sorry, I left out Mercury, Venus or Mars, conjunct this eclipse or opposite this eclipse. If it is either conjunct or opposite, then this eclipse presents powerful energy for you. It can impact you quite powerfully. Now, solar eclipses, because they represent the dark, the unconscious, the shadow, and as I said, they trigger, they bring up what is hidden. If we are not on a path of awareness, awakening, evolution, spiritual awakening, then what happens is that these eclipses force things to come through from your dark shadow self, as it were, your unconsciousness, that you are otherwise unable to look at, to work with, to understand, to clear, to heal. So because of that, it comes up, and it can be quite a shock what can come up, because it's literally something coming out of the dark and now facing you right there. It's right in front of you. So there's this shift, of something from the dark coming into the light, that if you're not prepared for, it can be very, very challenging to manage. Another way of putting it is like this: if you're hiding things, whether you are conscious of it or not, that really need to come to the surface and be cleared and healed and evolved and worked through, then these eclipses can pose real challenges. If you're in denial about certain things relating to where the eclipse is. So the first thing is, as I said, is it aspecting any of those personal planets via conjunction or opposition? And in addition to that, what house does the eclipse fall into as well? Because the house that it falls into, which is the area of life, and the planet that it aspects via conjunction or opposition, it is that planetary archetypal energy, whatever that represents in your life, that is going to be eclipsed, where something that has been hidden comes into your awareness and your consciousness. Just another thing, in terms of timing, even though the eclipse is, I think, on the 6th of January, and we'll double check that in a moment, the energy of the eclipse really kicks in weeks before the actual eclipse date. And it can last up to, 6 months post the eclipse date. So we've really got a very wide window of where energy is building, and then eventually something is revealed. Something that is hidden comes up. If you are hiding something, if you're in denial of something, if you're suppressing something, if you're not on track with whatever that planet represents that the eclipse is hitting, so let's just say it's Venus or Mars, then clearly it's got to do with the world of relationships. And obviously it's got to do, when it comes to Venus, it's how your relationship with money, it's your relationships period, it's your entire system of self-worth and value, and all those things come into light, but very specifically relationships, because it's Venus. And if it's Mars, it's a similar thing. It's it's relationships with men, whether you're a man or a woman, it's the connections that you have with men. It's also your own intentions, it's your own energetic expression of will. Mars is the lesser will of Pluto. It still represents our willpower and our desires. It's the desires that can really overtake us at times, more from a lower self perspective, you could say, or an ego personality level, whereas Pluto's desires are the desires of the soul, so it's very different. So if this eclipse is affecting your Mars or your Venus, then you're really looking at the Mars-Venus components of your own self, of your inner self, and of your world of relationships. And with Mars, it's your own drives and desires and intentions and ambitions, as I said. So if you're not on track with those parts of your life, if you're not authentic, and you're hiding things, and you're in denial about certain things, then this eclipse will bring something up that will force you to basically pay attention. Now, solar eclipses almost always manifest through external circumstances. So it's literally an event that takes place that shakes things up, essentially. Because the energy starts weeks before the actual eclipse date and months, and can last up to 6 months post the eclipse date, that's the maximum, then, you know, what we're really looking at is a fairly long window of feeling somewhat unsettled, because eclipses, you know, they do unsettle us. Even if we are on the path and we're doing conscious work, they can still bring some unsettling emotional responses that we may have, because even though we are operating fairly consciously, it is still going to bring something that's hidden. But the difference is when we are working spiritually in our life, on our path with ourself and with the divine, we have that ability to have a better grasp on things, you know, more insight, and certainly more willingness to work with this energy consciously and to make the most out of it and to achieve spiritual awakening and spiritual insights. Eclipses are, you know, they are a very powerful spiritual symbol in terms of the work we can do on ourselves very, very deeply, very, very, very deeply. I looked at the Sabian symbol and I couldn't really connect with it, so I'm not going to bother really discussing it. Now, this eclipse being in Capricorn is, it's very close to Saturn. So Saturn, you know, is a key figure in this energy because Saturn is in Capricorn at the moment. And Pluto is within range as well to be impacting this eclipse. So we're really looking at some very strong, powerful energies. And I think from a spiritual perspective with Saturn there, what we're looking at is, you know, Saturn in esoteric astrology is like the gatekeeper to sacred wisdom and knowledge. So it's a very powerful energy. But when Saturn is operating at a more unconscious level, it's the experiences of feeling blocked or inhibited or frustrated, or experiences of loss or separation as well. So it just depends, you know, who you are and what's going on in your life for you at this point in terms of how these energies can play out. Obviously, the key component is consciousness. It always is with everything, because that brings awareness and clarity and illumination and the, as I said before, the wanting to do the work. You know, it's the, actually, you know, Capricorn is, on a spiritual level, it's the sea goat, you know, so on an exoteric level, it's the mountain on the goat. And at its highest manifestation on an exoteric level, it's the leader that is leading humanity to a higher understanding and a higher purpose of existence. And on an esoteric level, it's the practical mystic, you know, so there's a lot of energy contained in this Capricorn solar eclipse, and there's a lot of potential for a lot of spiritual awakening to occur. But as I said, you know, if it's working at a lower level, then it can be a pretty difficult eclipse to experience because of Saturn's energy there. Now, Saturn can also be a clearing of karma, because Saturn is the planet that rules karma. So, you know, Saturn with this eclipse on a more conscious, elevated level can be an opportunity to really clear up some old karma. And I say old karma because this eclipse is conjunct the South Node. And because it's conjunct the South Node, it carries with it lifetimes of past karma. So there's, you know, very powerful junctures here for people to really do a lot of powerful healing from past life residue, you could say. And Pluto's force and energy in the mix, to me, just really speaks the soul. It speaks through the soul's intentions, the soul's desires, the soul's will, you know, is coming through this eclipse as well. So there's tremendous ability to do incredible evolutionary work for your soul. Now you put all that together with where this eclipse lands in your birth chart, and what planets it's actually forming a conjunction or an opposition to, then you can start to get a sense and start to build a picture of what this eclipse potentially means for you and what it's pointing to and what it's bringing up from the hidden, from your shadow, from the dark. And the other thing is it's in Capricorn, so the polarity point is Cancer. So, you know, it's really, on the one hand, it's addressing the old karmic issues that pertain to Capricorn archetypal forces and energy, which is what? It's patriarchal energy, it's old systems, it's structures, it's rules, it's norms, it's laws, things like that. And it's, you know, perhaps another way of putting it would be, say, breaking away, clearing karma from the known, from the structures that are known in our psyche that have been sort of integrated through possibly many lifetimes, really. So there's an opportunity to break free here with this solar eclipse from bringing the awareness in, you know, clearing out old karma. And with Pluto's energy being the soul forces, there's clearly an intention of the soul needing to evolve through something. Now, these eclipses are clearly not going to affect every single person on the planet. They will potentially affect people who have the Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars in either Cancer, Capricorn at approximately 15 degrees. So for the rest of the people on the planet that don't have the personal planets in Capricorn at that degrees, they possibly won't even feel the eclipse. But never say never. And then there is the collective experience of eclipses as well. So very interestingly, I don't watch the news, but somehow people bring things to my attention which can sometimes be very useful, because I love to look at world events through the lens of astrology. And somebody brought to my attention just recently all the chaos that's been happening in France. And a few days ago when we had the new moon in Sagittarius, and I did a video about that, and that new moon was impacted heavily by Mars-Neptune. And I said it was going to be possibly a difficult energy with that Mars-Neptune. And it's interesting because on the day of the new moon, you know, things really blew up in a much more powerful way in the country of France, in Paris, with the riots and things that have been going on relating to government and, you know, the president, prime minister, whatever it is, and the people in uproar about certain systems that have been suggested that will be integrated, which clearly have to do with money and, you know, survival for people essentially. So there's been this massive uproar, and there's been an involvement of over 30,000 people really in terms of protesting on the streets and so forth. And I thought, well, okay, let's have a look at the chart of France, because every single country, every single state in the world has a chart, you know, a birth chart. So I found the chart of France, and I used the one that has been mostly identified as being the correct one, and the one that has been used the most from an astrological lens. It was suggested that there are a couple of different times, but anyway, I took the one that has been used the most by very well-known, respected authorities in astrology as well. And yeah, I was blown away, but on the other hand, I wasn't, because I simply know how powerful astrology is. So what happened is this. In the chart of France, of Paris, the moon, the natal moon of that chart is in the 4th house in Capricorn. And this solar eclipse is landing exactly on that moon in the chart of France. Now, that is very, very significant, very significant. But just to give you a little bit of understanding, see, the moon, astrologically, quite apart from everything that it represents on a personal, individual level, on a collective level, the moon rules the masses. It's the people. So this moon in the 4th house of the chart of France being eclipsed, that is the uproar of the people, the 30,000 protesters that were heavily invested over, I think it was over a 4-week period, where, you know, there's been a lot going on. I don't even have, you know, I just have a small glimpse into that. But all I really need to know is what was going on astrologically, and that's what's going on. Now, that eclipse, as I said, is on the 6th of January. Let me just share my screen and just make sure that I'm giving the correct date. I believe I am, but let's just double check. Yes, 6th of January 2019. Don't worry about where things are located. Again, this solar eclipse chart has been drawn for Melbourne, Australia, which is where I am located. So it doesn't matter where everything is. But if you see here, you can see the sun and moon are conjunct naturally. It's a new moon solar eclipse. It's a partial solar eclipse, which is why the nodes, see these nodes here? North node in Cancer, South node in Capricorn. The reason they appear to be a fair distance from the sun and moon, the solar eclipse, is because it's a partial. If it was a total solar eclipse, then these nodes, this south node, would pretty much be exactly where that sun and moon is. Okay, so that's the difference visually and by degrees of a total solar eclipse and a partial solar eclipse. Nevertheless, partial solar eclipses are just as powerful. And here is Saturn, as I was just discussing earlier. You can see Saturn is very close in there. And, well, Pluto is just as close. In fact, it's you know, it's probably almost equal distance. Pluto is just 1 degree further on than what Saturn is in terms of proximity to the sun and the moon. So Pluto and Saturn are holding this eclipse. They're look at them. They're at either side of the eclipse. So they are the gatekeepers, really, of this energy. So they are very powerful forces, and they have a lot to say. And naturally, Pluto will be adding incredible depth and intensity from a soul evolutionary level. And Saturn in Capricorn, it's clearing out old karma. It's a massive, massive, massive opportunity. It just depends how you're able to open yourself up to the possibilities spiritually, to honestly, from your heart, work through what it is that's trying to present to you. And the polarity being Cancer means that we need to feel, you know, we need to, well, in fact, we need to anyway, even though this energy is in the sign of Capricorn, which is not a sign normally associated with emotionality. Nevertheless, eclipses, solar eclipses, because they are represented from this darkness, which is the shadow, the unconscious, which therefore limits our vision. We can't see what's happening. So we must rely on what we feel, and what we feel very deeply from within our soul, and what we intuitively feel as well. And we are forced to go to those components of how we experience things. And as a result, you know, by not seeing something, it's very similar like when you have a blind person who can't see anything, then clearly their other senses are totally sharpened, because they have to be. They are relying on these other senses to help them navigate and manage and understand and feel and experience whatever that is. Well, it's a similar thing with the solar eclipse, because we don't have the vision when this is happening, when the solar eclipse is happening. So symbolically, when this energy is in play, which it is right now, it's already started. That's why these events have taken place in France. That eclipse has eclipsed France's moon. That's the people. Moon rules the masses. It's very powerful stuff. And eclipses on a collective level will almost always, when they hit something off, especially something personal in the chart of a nation, of a country, and, you know, there's things that really need to be cleared up, established, resolved, worked through, healed, you know, managed better, whatever the case may be. The eclipses just bring all that up, you know, and in this case it's the moon, so it's the people creating the uproar and expressing, you know, how passionately they feel about what they feel relating to certain systems and monetary things. And I think it's got to do with tax and petrol and a number of different things. So there's a collective example of the power of this eclipse that's already kicked in, and the eclipse hasn't even happened, all right? And I purposely brought this up to demonstrate to you how powerful solar eclipses can be, even, you know, just prior to the eclipse date itself. So, you know, we have, I think it's 3 eclipses that we have next year. We have one at the beginning of the year, which is the one I've just spoken about. There's one in the middle of the year, and there's one at the end of the year. So, you know, it's going to be eclipse season pretty much all year, you could say, again. And it's the energies of Cancer Capricorn that we are given an opportunity to evolve through and to do some really beautiful spiritual work through those 2 archetypes, Cancer Capricorn. Very powerful. And so wherever that Cancer Capricorn polarity is in your birth chart, it is those areas of your life, those 2 houses, those 2 areas of life that you are given an opportunity pretty much the entire of next year to spiritually heal and work through and release a lot of old karma. Very powerful year ahead. There's a lot of other things going on, but really today all I wanted to do was just unpack the importance of this one eclipse on the 6th of January, and I will do some further videos about the other eclipses and what they are bringing in. But as I said, for those of you born, you know, late December right through to mid-January, this eclipse will be affecting you personally. So if you want to understand more about it and you want to have a reading around that and some of the things that may be going on for you, please feel free to contact me. Just email me directly. Details will be in the description box below. If you have any questions, you can email me. And certainly please put your questions and comments below this video. And please subscribe if you haven't and if you enjoyed this video. And there's much more to come. There always is. Thanks, guys. Much love and blessings. And I'll see you guys again shortly, well and truly before Christmas and so forth, for those of you that celebrate Christmas. Love and blessings. Bye for now.